Hello, my name is Jimmy Vegas and welcome to the 21st in a series of video tutorials for Unity 5. So if you remember last episode, we created this black screen right at the end, which we'll be using to fade our screen out and in. So we called it full black. The way we'll be doing this is by using some animation along with some scripting. So what we're going to start with is duplicate, so hold Control, press D, that full black. You're probably asking now, why do we need two? Well, the reason is only one's going to be animated. Only this full black will be black screen, and only this one, which we will rename, will be the animated one, which will fade into our game. So let's call this fade screen. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of animation in future tutorials using various different things like opening doors, pressing switches and whatever. So I think we need to create a separate folder now for animations. So let's call it animation. Make sure you're in this folder and then click on your animation tab here. Again, if you don't have it, you can add it using this little menu button over here, add tab and animation. Click on fade screen and you'll either have a button here which says create new, or you'll have the little record button, or maybe both up here. Whichever one you press should start this process of asking you to save a new animation file. So I'm simply going to call this fading anim. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to set our color. So I'm going to set it as jet black. The reason I've done that again on the first frame here is because if you don't do that, it can cause problems later on when you're trying to get it to work. So I am going to set this as a second long. So I'm going to go to the 60th frame as my sample is 60 frames per second. And I'm going to change the alpha down here where it says 255 currently to the number 1. So over the course of 60 seconds, it will reduce the alpha from 255 to 1. So I'm going to press the record button just here again to stop the animation. So if I disable full black now and click on play, we should see the fade screen animation constantly playing right in front of us rather than playing just once and going off. You probably can't see it too well on the video, but if you've done exactly how I've done, you will see that. If you want your fade screen to last longer, i.e. Perhaps 2 seconds, then you would do this where we've done it at the 60th frame, put that as the 120th frame. If you want 2.5 seconds, that will be the 150th frame, 3 seconds, 180th frame, and so on for however long you want. Just remember how long you have done your fade for, because we'll need to know when we get round to doing the script. So I'm going to reactivate the full black just there. Next, I'm going to go into scripts, and we need to write a script which will nicely enable us to have this black screen, turn it off and allow the other one to fade, and then get rid of everything so then we can play the game. So right click, create, and JavaScript, and I'm going to call this 000 effect area start. So when we add various other things to this script, more complex things like enabling our inventory display, our cursor display, it won't just be for animation. So that's the reason it's not called animation. So in other words, we'll be expanding on this script in later tutorials. So open the script in MonoDevelop or Visual Studio, whichever one you have, it makes no difference, as I always say. So this script is, I think it's going to be about 10, 11 lines maybe. And there's 2 variables that we need to set, and those variables are the fade screen and the full black screen. So var black screen, and that will be a game object. Var, which this one will be the fade screen. So fade screen game object. Remember, it is case sensitive, and remember those semicolons at the end. The function we'll be using is not update. We'll be using function start. The reason I'm not using update is because we'll be using the yield line in there, and that doesn't work so well with update. So function start, open close bracket, and open curly bracket. Next line down, I'm going to put yield, wait for seconds, and I'm going to have just 1 second for now. Next, what we need to do is we need to activate our fade screen. So fade screen dot get component, and that component will be animator. Oh, not animation, animator in double quotes. Dot enabled equals true, and then semicolon. And then we need to disable our full black screen because we've started up our animation to fade. So black screen dot set active false. Next thing we need to do is wait. So yield and then wait for seconds. Now in here, although, for example, I have done my fade screen to last 1 second, it's always best to wait just ever so slightly less than that 1 second. So I'm going to put 0.99 in there and a semicolon. So if you've had your fade screen going for 2 seconds, it's probably best to put, say, 1.99 in there. It just gives us a bit of leeway in the future. So the next thing we need to do is stop the animator component on the fade screen. So fade screen dot get component, open bracket, quote, animator, quote again, close bracket, dot enabled equals, oops, not true, we want it false. And what we're going to do now is disable that fade screen. So fade screen dot set active, and in brackets false. So you might be asking, why don't we just deactivate the fade screen after that 1 second, after the 0.99 seconds there? The reason being is because it's always good practice to turn something on, then turn it off before you set it as inactive. For example, if you come in, put all the lights on in your house, you turn them off before you go out usually because it saves money on your electricity. So in a way, it's sort of similar. Turn it on, then turn it off before you get rid of it. After that, close curly bracket and save. That is pretty much the script which will now fade our screen into our game. So let's try it out. Head back into Unity. Giving it a quick think down here in the right, and everything looks just fine. So on the fade screen, untick the animator just so as it doesn't start. Game object, create empty. Right click, rename, and let's call this area starting scripts. So the reason I've called it that is because we can kind of keep all our scripts in one place for whenever we need to create something new to our area, i.e. if we want to have some level of random generation to some parts of our area, we can store the script on this particular object along with everything else. So you can probably have a list of scripts down here. So let's set our black screen and our fade screen variables. So full black is our black screen, fade screen is our fade screen, and with any luck, when we press play, we should have a black screen for about a second, and then it should fade into our game quite nicely. So that's all there is to it, creating a simple fade screen. If you want a white fading screen, you do exactly the same. You just change your color over here as you're animating. One thing to note, if you've created your animation in black, you can't really change it in Inspector Paint to white. You would have to create a new animation. But that does create a few benefits, because then you've got two animations, one for black, one for white. Last thing before we go, I've had a few questions asking about cursor. I'm going to add in a cursor real quick, a real simple one. We'll probably advance on it, maybe the next tutorial or the one after, to make it a little bit more cursor-like. But all you would do is game object, UI, and let's go with raw image. Make sure you set your anchor point to the middle position, 0, 0, 0. Let's do the width as, let's do 8, and the height also as 8. So now when we press play, we should see in the middle of our screen a dot. Yeah, it's not fantastic, but it's at least a cursor of where you're pointing to, just for now. So we'll advance on that at some point to make it a bit more cursor-like. So I'll tell you what, let's quickly rename that, just have that as cursor. Okay, so I think we'll leave that tutorial there for now. Next tutorial, we're going to be looking at creating a kind of a starting quest. It'll be similar to when we created the quest over here with the NPC over here, asking us to fetch the loot in this building. But what I intend to do is perhaps move our first person character over here a little bit, build up the trees. So when we start, he perhaps says to himself, "Ooh, I need to get out of here. How about that village over there?" So then you're starting your own little quest. We'll be doing that using triggers, bit of UI again with the quest box, a message box, altering a few text things here and there. It's not overly difficult, but you know, we've come this far, so hopefully you guys shouldn't have too much of a problem with it. So until the next episode, you play around with your fade screen, you get it looking exactly how you want it. You start fiddling around perhaps with your cursor if you want to just go ahead without me and try making your own cursor. So yeah, until the next episode, thank you very much for watching.